Hi, surprise, and happy International Angelman Syndrome Day. I'm JC from the Do Good Letters, and today I'm going to share a little bit about Angelman Syndrome with you. My son was diagnosed with this disorder when he was 18 months old, and it's a rare genetic disorder that affects the 15th chromosome on the maternal side. A lot of the characteristics of people with Angelman syndrome are a seizure disorder, a nonverbal, a sleep disorder, a generalized happy demeanor, although they can get kind of cranky, and a fascination with water. They have global delays in developments as well. Some of the, not some of the cause for Angelman syndrome is the gene, the Angelman gene, is the UBE3A, and it's located on the 15th chromosome. Some genes on the chromosome are turned on or expressed, and others are turned off or silent. In typical humans, the UBE3A gene from our father is silent, and the UBE3A gene from our mother helps our brain develop. However, in individuals with Angelman syndrome, like my awesome son, there is a problem with the UBE3A gene from the mother, and the brain cannot get the information it needs to develop and control speech, movement, and learning. All of this action in the chromosome takes place during fetal development and thus is part of a person's genetic makeup. This is all from the Angelman Syndrome Foundation. This is one of the two awesome foundations supporting Angelman syndrome. The other is the Foundation for Angelman Syndrome Therapeutics, also known as FAST, both of which I'm going to put the links in the description and the little live chat. I'm just doing this very quickly because I do need to go pick up said child with Angelman syndrome from school. And if you choose and want to support, blue is Angelman syndrome color, and you can wear it today to show support for our lovely kids, adults, and other individuals living with Angelman syndrome. Let's see. We do have a little nickname, which some of us do call, because one of the characteristics of our children is that they have light skin and hair and eyes. And they do have kind of a happy demeanor, again, most of the time. So because of the name Angelman syndrome, which was named after the doctor who discovered and researched it, we sometimes shorten a little nickname. Hi, Reagan. Thank you for being here. We do sometimes call our children angels, but that's very specific to the individual themselves, whether that or not they like that. And the parent or caregiver. Some people are comfortable with it, some are don't. Some are not. Most of us think of it as a pretty playful and endearing nickname, but please always ask the person or caregiver. Let's see. There was one more thing I was going to do. Oh, I'm going to put in both the links below for the two organizations for Angelman syndrome. Again, it is the Angelman Syndrome Foundation and the Foundation for Angelman Syndrome Therapeutics. Kind of the difference between the two is that the Angelman Syndrome Foundation, they do a lot of research. They have conferences each year that really helps educate parents and caregivers, doctors, speech pathologists. It really helps us with a lot of information. The second, and they also have an angel fund, which a family can fill out an application to apply. Some people have gotten resources like an adaptive bicycle or a safety and security bed, things that may be a little bit more out of someone's budget when you're caring for somebody with Angelman syndrome. The other one, the Foundation for Angelman Syndrome Therapeutics. Forgive me, I'm trying to rush through this because I do have to leave fairly soon, but I wanted to explain a little bit and give you some resources to find out some more, because I know a lot of you are very supportive of me and I am of you, and I'm sharing a little bit about my life and my son and others who live with this condition. So, Foundation for Angelman Syndrome Therapeutics, they do a lot of research for Angelman syndrome on like the genetic and the science side. Um, Somebody who's really supportive of this foundation is actually Colin Farrell, because one of his children is diagnosed with Angelman syndrome. His name is James. Hi, James. Hi, Colin. We're so on a first name basis. But so that's a little bit of information. And again, let me put those links down below. Let's see. And yes, one of the things with my son, he, as most of our children, are here's ASF, Angelman Syndrome Foundation, and some of its symptoms and causes. And forgive me. My son loves water. In fact, this past birthday for him, we went to a one of those hotels that has a whole water park inside. You can probably hear some water right now. My dishwasher is running. But here's a link for the FAST, or Foundation for Angelman Syndrome Therapeutics. Pardon me, I was going to screen share, but I'm not sure I'm able to at the moment. Let me see if I can find a little photo gallery. A lot of people, again, with Angelman syndrome, they have similar characteristics. It's not as pronounced as something like Down syndrome, but once you're familiar with someone with Angelman syndrome and you see, I mean, everyone's their own individual, right? But you start to notice similar characteristics. And if you've seen someone, you can potentially, don't run up to anybody and just be like, hey, do you have Angelman syndrome, or does your kid have Angelman syndrome? Unless you have your child with Angelman syndrome with you, then it's totally allowed. That's happened to me, and I've done it to other people. We're cool with that. But you gotta have your angel pass with you, or you just can't do it. But so yes, they have similar characteristics, and two of the diagnoses. This is one reason why I like to bring awareness, other than sharing with you how cool my son is that it often is misdiagnosed with autism and or cerebral palsy. They were thinking that my son had cerebral palsy whenever he were going through figuring out what it is that we needed to do to help him. One of the things was that his neurologist thought he may have cerebral palsy. But it turns out through genetic testing, which is normally how it is discovered, that he had Angelman syndrome. And there was a point to all of that, and I can't remember. But yes, they often get misdiagnosed with autism or cerebral palsy, because my son does have sensory issues. And again, he has developmental delays. He is between 10 and 13 and is not yet walking, but there's not anything physically keeping him from walking. It just is part of the nature of the brain and the body not being able to communicate like it should, and also muscle tone and things like that. But if you'll look at those links below, those will help educate you a little bit more if you would like to know more. And I hope you do, about Angelman syndrome. And those are links also to the foundations, and they have places where you can donate if you wish to. And just for a little screen share here, let's see. I'm going to show you a little, oh no, our table. Too much TikTok. That's what I should have done, and maybe I'll do later. There's some really cool families to follow on TikTok with Angelman syndrome. There's a girl, her sister has Angelman syndrome, and they're both of age, like in their 20s. And they tease each other and are so hilarious and so near and dear to my heart. I should really be a better advocate and have a lot of that in my links, but I don't. Maybe I'll add it later. But if you are on TikTok, type in Angelman syndrome. There are a lot of people out there. I don't have my son on there. I want to, because it really helps to have other people who you can see, understand, share struggles. But I am a little hesitant to have a space on there, although it's fucking adorable. So is my daughter. I mean, none of my kids look like me, but they're still adorable. And you can still go to these websites, and I will pull one up right now to show you a little photo gallery of our kids. And I may get a little teary eyed because I actually recognize some of these people. And yes, Angelman syndrome, it affects 1 in 15,000 people. So it's rare, but it's not super rare. We know even in our county, at least 10 to 15 other people diagnosed with Angelman syndrome. So it's small. We don't have as much support as other diagnoses, but it's also not so rare that it is an act of God, so to speak, to meet somebody else with the disorder as well, if you've been or your child has been properly diagnosed. So let me share that right now. All right, let's see. I think I know who this is too. Let's see. Let me go back, because for some of it does show their names and dates of birth, which apparently the parents have agreed to, but it's just not something I'm super confident in sharing. So those are some of our smiley kids. I recognize this gal right here. As you can see, they all kind of have a wide smile, and some of them have like gaps in their teeth. That's pretty across the board with Angelman syndrome, but not always. When my son was little, he looked a lot like this guy right here. And depending on what type of Angelman syndrome they have, and there are 3 different types, can kind of, and this girly here, she's a lot bigger than that now, but I do recognize her. So the 3 different types can kind of range on ability. It's kind of a spectrum. Primarily, everyone with Angelman syndrome is functionally nonverbal. They might be able to say a handful of words, but it's not functional speech. They do use communication devices. My son is learning how to use one now. I can't believe all of these pictures aren't our children in the water, but it's a rare moment where they're not, or have a bucket on their head. That tends to be a silly thing that they all do. I don't know why. We have an Angelman syndrome Facebook page, and a lot of people will put up pictures sometimes of either their feet in our faces because they want their feet or hands massaged, which they are very adamant about, my son included, or they'll have a bucket or random basket or something over their head. I don't know. It's a thing. Again, not everyone, but most people. Let me see if I can share a couple more little tidbits about Angelman syndrome. Boop, boop, boop. Yep, affects the 15th chromosome. There was, where is it? Yep. Okay, here are the different types. There's deletion positive, which is the most common of the diagnoses of Angelman syndrome. 70% of cases of AS, and it occurs when the mother's copy of the UBE3A has been deleted and is not present, which is the case with my son. And from what they've noticed, their symptoms tend to be a little bit more severe. He has a lot more seizures, although he's okay at the moment. We're good. just the developmental and physical delays can be greater, and the speech delay is greater as well. So, but there is, even though it's the most common, there is less than a 1% chance of having a child with this type of Angelman syndrome. So I don't know, somebody math that for me. But I'm not a carrier. I'm not at any greater risk for having another child with Angelman syndrome, although I wouldn't mind at all. I love my son. I love my daughter. I have the both of best world. I just flipped that. I do have the both of best worlds, the best of both worlds. I have worlds. I have children. I have issues. But I have a child who is typical and thriving, and a child with Angelman syndrome and thriving. And I love them both, and they've changed my world both for the better. So, deletion positive is the type my son has. And the second type of Angelman syndrome is mutation, affecting 11% of the cases. This is when a mutation or alteration in the 15th chromosome inherited from the mother, and it either prevents the expression of the UBE3A gene or it alters its function. The other type is imprinting center defect. This affects 6% of the cases of Angelman syndrome, and it's when an abnormality in the imprinting center of the 15th chromosome is inherited from the mother. The imprinting center is the area of the chromosome that controls whether genes are turned on or off, and the UBE3A from the mother may be present. The problem in the imprinting center makes the UBE3A gene unavailable to the brain. So before I go on to the next one, the interesting thing is pretty much what, in very layman's terms, everything that a person needs. Well, you get two chromosomes, one from your mom and one from your dad, because what typically happens is if there's anything missing or not working properly on one chromosome, the other one picks up. Well, the fun thing about Angelman syndrome is that everything my son needs, even though it's deleted on the maternal side, it is present on the paternal side, but it's dormant. It's not turned on. And if you research something called the stickleback fish experiment and theory, it kind of shows you that there is a possibility to turn on the paternal gene, make it not dormant. And that's what a lot of the Foundation for Angelman Syndrome Therapeutics is working on. And it's pretty interesting to see that it is a possibility. And that's controversial too. I love my son, how he is, but I sure do wish he never had to experience another seizure. And I wish when he's hurting, he could tell me what's wrong. I'm not going to cry. So the fourth type of Angelman syndrome is the paternal uniparental disomy, also known as UPD. It affects 3% of the cases of AS, and it's when there are two number 15 chromosomes from the father, but not one from the mother. So since the UBE3A from the father is silenced or turned off, and the one from the mother is absent, the brain cannot get the information it needs from the UBE3A. And if you're a little nerdy like me, it's an interesting thing to know that Angelman syndrome is one reason why we know about genotypes. So, as you've kind of seen in chromosome 15, if there's something missing or different with the UBE3A gene on the maternal side, it causes Angelman syndrome. Well, on the paternal side, if I can't remember what the exact thing is, but if there's an abnormality on the paternal side of chromosome 15, it causes Prader-Willi syndrome. And scientists were like, how in the world are we getting two completely different disorders on the same chromosome? So that's when they discovered genotypes, which someone much smarter will be able to explain that to you. It's definitely not me. If my husband were here, he could. But again, this website has a lot of awesome information about Angelman syndrome. It also has ways that you can support people with Angelman syndrome. Oh, send encouragement. What's that? We always need encouragement. Do, 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 do. Oh, I didn't know that. We have little care committees? Didn't know. Oh, well, awesome. Had no idea. So I learned me something today too. That's incredible. And that's something I hope to do one day too. Is before COVID, I was working on kind of a smaller, more micro um, organization for Angelman syndrome. A lot of times when our folks go in the hospital, it's nice to have another parent there with you to help guide you through it, especially if you're not from the area. You know, when we travel, things can happen. My son has had a seizure in a completely different state. We were in a hospital, very unfamiliar to us, and it was nice to have the support of other parents. And also, kind of like this, hey, your children are sick, or your child is newly diagnosed, or going through a new milestone in life, like maybe your neighbor's kid at the same age is about to go to middle school and your son's not, and just need a little pick me up. So these are all ways that I also wish to reach out to my own community, our own community here in South Carolina. But until that day comes, these are great organizations to donate to as well. So before I start crying, I'm going to get off here. And thank you guys for watching. Remember to do good today, and happy International Angelman Syndrome Day.